Tourism conference, one of almost 500 sessions taking place these days all over the city about urban issues. And as you know, tourism is on the rise. It's one of the big issues in many cities. Tourism is on the rise everywhere in the world. Cities like Venice and Barcelona and Amsterdam are maybe at the forefront, but I saw pictures last month of Mount Everest, where a queue of people was waiting to get to the top. So over-tourism is basically everywhere, if it even reaches those spots in the world. The question is, can we redistribute the benefits and the burdens of tourism in a way that makes it more sustainable? That's the main question for today. And a question is then, is it in fact possible, fair tourism? Is that even a possibility? Or is it very difficult or maybe even impossible? We're going to have a range of speakers, quite a lot. So it's a very full program. And my task is to watch the time. I will be strict in that. And I will watch the time also to allow you as an audience to ask questions and participate in the discussion about this topic. What did I forget to tell you? Oh yeah, the conference is an initiative, a co-production of Pakhuis de Zwijger in Holland University and the tourism entrepreneur platform TOP in Amsterdam-North. And Amsterdam-North is sort of the case study for today. So the program is going to work from an international perspective all the way down to the neighborhood level. And the neighborhood that we're going to talk about is Amsterdam-North. Okay, before I announce the keynote speaker of today, I want to know something. We're talking about fair tourism, but I was wondering, is there anyone here in the audience that considers him or herself a fair tourist? Yes? There's someone there? Yeah? What does a fair tourist do? Hi.
Hi. You mean when I'm traveling or while I work in tourism here? Because in both ways, I think.
Okay, no, when you're traveling.
I try to use local people and places, not the mass tourism places, trying not to fly.
Okay. Where did your last trip go?
Bhutan.
Bhutan. And you went swimming there?
That was, no, I did have to fly that time, yes. But once in Bhutan, it was all well taken care of.
Okay. Good. Someone else who dares to say that he or she is a fair tourist? Because that's what... Otherwise it's going to be difficult, right? Yeah. Hi.
I used to be one. I don't have the money anymore to travel.
Okay. Where did you used to go?
I've been all over the world. First thing, I learn a couple of decent words. And then I sit down the first day and I see how the natives use their place. And I try to just blend in.
What was the most exotic place that you visited this way?
That was Morocco. I bought a jaleba and a very cheap handkerchief. And I walked the city. And it went terrific. Till
so you disguised as a local?
Yes, but I was a heavy smoker by then. And the whole place exploded when I lit a cigarette.
Okay, that's funny. Okay, good. So we'll, yeah. More fair tourists? One more? No fair tourists anymore? That's interesting. So somebody who says I'm not. Oh yeah, there's a yeah.
We're experimenting with home swap. We've done that in many places. Recently in Andalusia, here in Amsterdam also. And at the moment, there's a tourist from London in our apartment in Tel Aviv. So we're trying to do it person to person.
Okay, so what's the advantage of doing a swap?
What?
Why is it fair to do a swap?
Because it doesn't involve big corporate interests. It's just person to person. Sharing, being able to swap location, but otherwise just live in the city as a local would.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So a good example as well. All right. So I'm going to come back to this question because I suppose that the rest of the audience says I'm not too fair a tourist. I'm just a regular tourist, right? Yeah. Who is a very bad tourist in this way? Very unfair. Yeah. Can I? Yeah. Why do you raise your hand?
Well, I had 6 big travels the last 6 years for a month, but it all was with flying really far, like Colombia, Tanzania. So when I arrived, I was maybe fair, but the flight to it is not fair at all, I guess.
Did you enjoy it?
I loved it, yeah.
Okay, good. Oh, yeah.
I would like to contest the idea of fair tourism being, I don't know, mass tourism has a very good thing in itself as well, because it keeps away people from natural places around the cities.
Oh, yeah, okay. Mass tourism to cities can be beneficial because people don't go anywhere else. Okay, good point. I'll come back to you in the discussion part, I suppose. All right. So that, by ways of introduction, I'm going to announce the first speaker. As I said, we're going to start at the international level, and it's also an international speaker. He flew in from Spain. I suppose he flew in. I don't even know, actually. He's a director of a master in sustainable tourism destinations at the Hostelea School of Tourism in Barcelona, but they're also in Morocco and in Madrid. He published on overtourism and tourismphobia, and he's going to give a keynote lecture on that. Give him a warm welcome, Claudio Milano.
Okay. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure being here, and you start actually with a really important topic. Can we talk about fair tourism? Can we talk about sustainable tourism? And sustainable tourism, today I will share 15 minutes of keynote, will be a challenge, on the latest frontier of urban tourism, over-tourism. And I don't know if we can talk about sustainable tourism. In the last couple of months, with the Greta effect, we are all talking about flight shame. And actually was one of the answer there of, when we are traveling, actually, we cannot be sustainable until we don't have an alternative to carbon. And of course, what we can do for a more sustainable, if we want to use this word, or if we want to be more fair, probably to work to maximize the good effects of tourism and minimize the bad effect of tourism, the negative effect. Tourism will always have negative effect. And so when we started a couple of years ago, in Spain, the first time that has been used the word tourismphobia was in 2008 in a El País article, a Spanish newspaper. So the question was, how much tourism is too much? I mean, we have lived with the idea and the ideology of tourism as a way of economic development. So why now we are talking about over-tourism? But of course, in other activity, economic activity like agriculture or fishing, we do use the surface overfishing when we are over-exploiting some resources. And for the first time since 2017, we start to talk about over-tourism. But of course, from tourism studies and tourism scholars, we were already talking about the negative effect of tourism. Metrics matter. And of course, this is just another chart that we can see about how tourism has increased worldwide. But in this chart, what we actually can see and how tourism actually grow compared to the population was almost more than 5,000% of growing in tourist arrival since 1950. But of course, it's not tourism growth and tourism development is not equal. Tourism is another name of the power, says a Spanish anthropologist. Is another name of the power. Of course it is. We were talking about gentrification in the 60s with Ruth Glass in England. Now we are talking about touristification since the 90s, and thanks to geographer from France, sorry. And now we are talking about over-tourism. Different name of power. as well as when we are talking about sustainable tourism, there are different way to naming the greenwashing. Now we are all talking about green economy or circular economy. And then we were talking about responsible tourism, sustainable tourism, fair tourism. But this is unequal, the tourism development. In some countries, we are talking about how many tourists we have in our cities. But of course, in other, like Papua Guinea or Egypt or some other countries all around the world, they want more. So let's share with you, I don't have enough time, and what I can do is share with you some perspective of why we are talking about that. Why from Barcelona, from Venice, from Amsterdam, and mainly European city, but not just European, of course, we are talking about over-tourism. Of course, the first one is regarding our economic system. Since the 80s, we experience a neoliberal turn. So of course cities has changed a lot. And now we can talk about, there was a spatial restoration, and we can actually talk about destination instead of location. Before cities were location, now they are destinations. The high-end Amsterdam has any kind of city brand we have all around the world that actually start in New York with I Love New York, are an example of how we are going through a destination, not just a location. And then there is a new what actually geographers call a mobility turn. I have been 2 days in Amsterdam now. I was a tourist, of course I was a tourist, but I was a digital nomad. I was working with my laptop in a bar all day yesterday. So I was a digital nomad in a way. It's not simple anymore to define who is a tourist and who is not. It's really difficult. We have digital nomadism, we have the studentification. I don't know in Amsterdam, in your university guys, but in Barcelona, we are not even talking about Catalan and Spanish in master degree. We want master degree in English because we want international students. And of course, those are new agents in our cities that transform and change patterns of our city. So it's not just about tourists. Is about a new mobility pattern, a new mobility agenda. And then there is something that I called, but of course from my ethnocentrism as a Southern European. I am Italian, by the way, but I am settled in Spain and Barcelona since 2007. And why from my ethnocentrism and from my perspective? Because I have called this in one of my papers the touristification of social movement. Before, social movement and grassroots organization we talk about gender inequality, labor problem, privatization of schooling. But now we have a lot of grassroots organization in Southern Europe, like this one, in different cities. This was the first manifesto. Now there are much more cities in it that were the same activists that were fighting for other kind of rights, but now they are at least discussing and putting tourism in their agenda. So it's something, of course, that brings us to the fourth point. The yellow journalism and the sensationalism. I have never seen, I am in the tourism studies since the decades of 2000. I have never seen newspaper talking so much about tourism. The Guardian, New York Times, at Spanish level. I had at least 2 interviews with the Dutch journal Volkskrant. Well, my pronunciation, of course, is a Latin pronunciation. So, I mean, there is a kind of sensationalism. The Everest, actually, news was all over the world. We were talking about that. And this, of course, helps and contributes and fosters the discussion at a global level. But what is the point? We have several trends in tourism. But let's use a really ancient trend, authenticity. anthropologists, by the way, I am an anthropologist. Anthropology, we talk about authenticity in tourism since long time, and actually it's not the case that Airbnb, as a big player in the tourism sector in these decades, is using as a motto the live like a local. But as much we want to be like a local, our everyday life will be an experience for someone else. And so, of course, as much we go local, we are, of course, touristifying new destinations, new neighborhoods of our city. In some recent publications, some with Dutch colleagues from in Holland, on overtourism. This was another consultancy with other Dutch colleagues for the European Parliament, another one where I contribute with the case of Barcelona, and some publication in the last 2 years of this topic. We came out, and with different colleagues and myself, that overtourism, of course, is manifesting several kind of situation, like the privatization of public space. This is a big issue, at least in Barcelona and Lisbon, for example, with the problem of table outside of the bars or the bicycles, how we park the bicycles or use those kind of free tours in some cities. The commercial gentrification. Of course, we have much more souvenir shop than ever. The congestion of public space and public transport. And then there is a big issue, at least in some of our country now, that I was with our colleagues from Rotterdam partners, the issue about cruise tourism. And like the big issue here between Amsterdam, Rotterdam, cruise tourism is not just a problem or an issue in Southern Europe. The loss in resident purchasing power, of course, but this is also something that we can address to globalization and the time and space compression, how a geographer, David Darby, would call it. The imbalanced number of tourists, locals and visitors. This is the case of Iceland. In Iceland, they received more than 2 million tourists in 2017. The inhabitants, the Icelanders, are just 3,030. And then labor exploitation. We have a big issue of labor exploitation. The tourism growth is not synonym of fair and decent work. We have seen in hotel chain worldwide. And we need to discuss and rediscuss about those issues. And then environmental impacts. But it's a worldwide phenomenon. I have 3 minutes. Wow. A worldwide phenomenon. I would love to share much more case study, but of course we can meet each other later and talk about that. There are some technical solutions and some political solutions. What we have seen so far are just reaction to emergency case like Dubrovnik, Barcelona, Venice, and most of them are technical, are not political. We need political. We need a paradigm shift in how we measure tourism. We cannot measure tourism anymore with tourist arrival. We need other indicators. So a solution of dividing spaces between tourists and locals, it's just a technical solution that actually doesn't work anymore. Does work anymore because in a postmodern world, it's blurry, this lane between tourists and locals. Or, for example, putting gate in the city center of Venice to get inside. So what you are saying that Venice is a thematic park if you are putting a gate in, and that this is just the right of free circulation. And then, or closing tourist spots, like the case of Thailand. There are people working there are fishermen, there are restaurants, there are boaters working tourism. So this is not a solution. This was a solution for unsustainable tourism practice that I've experienced Thailand so far in the last decades. Or in case of Barcelona, I could have shown much more of Barcelona, but with this chart, what I want to show you guys, that the problem of over-tourism and the tourism-related issue change from the morning to the night. We can solve a problem during the morning in the park well up there with a lot of density, but in the afternoon and in the evening, we don't have any more problem of over-tourism Parkwell. So if we want to face, we can tackle over-tourism or tourism-related issue, it changed from the morning to the night. So what I have come through in the last couple of years doing researching is what I've called the 5 Ds, that are actually neoliberal strategy that can help, but just on the short terms. Those are just technical neoliberal strategies that has not helped a lot, like moving the High Amsterdam from the Museum Square and putting it in the north of the city. What we want, decentralization, decongestion. But we are measuring again the success of tourism in terms of tourist arrival. So diversification, deseasonalization, deluxe tourism, so pricing policies, decongestion, are of course on the short term can help, but what we need is a paradigm shift, a new set of indicators to measure tourism. And goes from the market to the storytelling, and from an exclusive model to an inclusive one. And this is a case of Barcelona, where they decide to, of course, using the storytelling and to show how they were using the tourist tax. But we don't have to use tourism tax just to promote the city. And probably what we need to do is to use tourist tax, or to use the income for a more inclusive and fair model. This is the latest urban frontier. This is tourismphobia or a new attraction. That's why it's so fascinating talking about tourism, being this sector, and that's why it's a really huge challenge. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Okay, please stay. Okay. There will be questions, I suppose, from the audience. And if you have a question, raise your hand and I come to you with the microphone. Yes.
Do you think that the tourist gaze is of a big impact for all the mass tourism to certain places?
Which one?
The tourist gaze from Uri. You see it on social media and you want to go there.
You mean like influencer? I didn't. I mean, if the way we promote tourism in social media, you say. Well, of course, with our new technologies is a way of promoting new places. And actually, a lot of countries, for example, in Central America, like Belize or Panama, they are using influencers to promote the city brand and the national brand. It's could be dangerous as well as could help to promote. It depends what you want in your countries and your city. It's tricky in a way. I don't know if I answer correctly to your question.
Yeah?
You said that we should move from an exclusive model to an inclusive tourism model. What would that look like, the inclusive model?
Governance. We need places, we need space in our government where grassroots association, academia, private sector, and social movement, we can sit and talk about privatization of public space, what we want for our bicycle policies in Amsterdam. So let's talk with the bicycle president association, if there is one. Let's talk with private sector. We need spaces of democratization, that we didn't have it. Usually tourism is a top-down approach. We need a bottom-up approach. I know that is quite utopic. Well, we need to work in this direction.
Thanks for the great presentation, by the way. Do you have some great examples of maybe city councils or national shifts, let's say, some concrete, interesting cases?
This, a question that always comes out because we need a good example. There are just some reaction to over-tourism in cities like the Amsterdam, for example, with Airbnb, in Barcelona with the PEWAT, the urbanistic plan, in Bhutan, where you need a visa, so you have a kind of deluxe tourism policies, but not really a paradigm shift. Barcelona, of course, was a city council that shifted from promotion to governance. because they had all those kind of places. We have 5 focus group with the civil society, private sector. So the Consell of Turisme i Ciutat, that is the board of tourism and city of Barcelona, I guess is a really best practice where people could interact during several sections and come out with a report after 1 year of which city we want. This could be a best practice, for example, the tourism and city board.
Okay, and you mentioned also in your presentation that we need new indicators to measure tourism, right? How would that help us?
I would love, for example, to get in an hotel and know if they are payment fairly their housekeepers, for example. So let's use and measure how many students on tourism in our city are actually working in the sector and if they have fair paid jobs. Instead of thinking just of tourism arrival, let's see, for example, how many decent work we are providing in our tourist city.
Okay,
for example, just one.
So, but that is a way that would help tourism. It wouldn't solve the over-tourism, right?
In an age of hypermobility, not really. Also, if we are going in a model where we are flying more and more. At least in Europe, we can avoid this flight shame with our train transport, but also transport has an impact.
Yeah, so you say so that's part of the problem can only be solved by a big political shift.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, yeah. There was one more question here, right? Yeah, yeah. Oh, you had the same question. Okay, yeah. Last question here.
If the solution lies in the political context, you're saying if there's, for example, this bikers association that you will give as an example, for example, then we have to talk with the bikers association. If we want to make something here, we talk with those. That's how you politicize it. However, what's happening in Amsterdam at the moment is that we talk too much. There's so many parties involved, so there's a lot of talking, and in the end, nothing really, the solutions are always sort of like in the middle, right? So then what is the first step if you want to change this political paradigm? And doesn't it become then top-down, which we don't really want from a participation perspective?
Mm-hmm.
Very easy question.
I knew that from this guy was coming a tough question. For the, it's complicated. It's really complex because at a geopolitical level, we don't have actually really great example of governance. Of course, there are some. And I do agree with you. That's why we are actually in Barcelona. We are really happy 4 years ago when this Progressist Party seems to change things from the bottom-up approach, and was like that in some part of their political activity, but not all. It's complicated, but of course, a revolution in our political can come just from a feminist, democratic, and bottom-up approach. It's really utopic, I know, but it's with grassroots association, social movements, and trying to discuss and being really effective at the political level. But it's difficult to have the same weight of the private sector. That's why it's complex.
Oh, wait.
I would have given the same answer, but still, I'm also like we're all very much about inclusive, participative, and everything. However, I cannot stop to think sometimes the only way that it really will have impact if there's just one person saying like, okay, this is how we do it. Shut up.
We need a dictator.
I don't want that, but sometimes I can't stop thinking like that's sort of the only possible way.
Okay, I do agree with you in one way, but then do we really as human beings, we cannot find another way of organize our society?
So we do have a problem. So now, as a last question, you as an expert, you've been studying different cities and their policies. Can you give us an educated guess of how this will develop? Are you hopeful or are you pessimistic? You started your discussion with fair tourism. Oh yeah, I don't know if it's really possible.
I guess probably in a couple of decades and in 20 years, our tourism flux globally will be redistributing. So of course we will have much more tourists in Rotterdam and probably a bit less in Amsterdam, but a bit less because people want authentic place and they want, in the era of social media, a picture in those kind of spots worldwide. So I am not pessimistic, but I do think that as for the environmental breakdown and the emergency that we have in the environmental issue, we also have an emergency in the hypermobility. We need an alternative to carbon, and we need to rethink the model of our city at a global scale.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it at that last message. Thank you so much for your presentation. Claudio Milano. Okay, I can't help but feel still a bit of the frustration. We want to know answers, but yeah, maybe we will get them later on today. Okay, then the second keynote speaker is an international advisor on the future of cities. He is famous for his successful polarization of the concept of the creative city, and he published a lot more, and you can see later on, if you come to the stage, all his publications, or maybe probably not all of them, but a lot of them laying down here. You can take some of the flyers. He's standing up already. Charles Landry.
Well, Claudio, did you like that grilling? You're a naughty boy. No, I didn't mean that. I know. I'm sure you're waiting. Anyway, look, we all know this future's complex, etc., etc. And I just want to take a slightly broader canvas because there are so many tourism specialists here that I'm not going to talk about tourism, only touch upon it in a small way. And my thing at the moment is basically how do you become a civic city in a nomadic world? And in one sentence, what that is really, in 60,000 words in one sentence, is where do we belong when everything is on the move? Or where do I belong when everything is on the move? What is my identity? And you can see this movement in every possible, conceivable way. The movement just simply that people are walking faster than they ever did before. They're eating faster than they ever did before. That's also a form of movement. And what's interesting about this photo, I took it in Quito Habitat, which was all about the new urban agenda, the SDGs and all of that. And it just reminds us of the chart you just showed us. When I was born, there were 2.6 billion people. Now there are 7.6. So to talk about sustainability, I'm not talking about euthanasia, but I'm just saying there is an issue of cultural education and so on. And so that is one of the major reasons driving everything, as we know. There are more people moving around for more reason. And I love this quote that Patrick Geddes, a long time ago, 100 years ago, said, "A city is more than a place in space, it's a drama in time." And I think we all know what this drama is, and let's explore it a bit. So obviously the world is in motion, again, probably too many here in Istanbul. The city itself is in motion because, you know, the cranes everywhere, Amsterdam-North, cranes everywhere, but that's just one of the many examples. And then the question, this is the big question, within all of that movement, how do you create places of encounter that are in some sense meaningful, and particularly where there may or may not be empathy? I'm not saying everybody should love each other or anything like that, but broadly get on with each other rather than not. So let's look at this movement a bit more closely. Obviously, people are moving from places to the Vortex Cities. And essentially what we're talking about is the Vortex Cities, because there are as many, if not more, cities that are shrinking. There are many more small cities in Europe, 700, under 250, under 100,000, than the very, very big cities. So I think just the question then is, but will they come back? Or will others come back to their hometown from which they've left? And the issue is, of course, the biggest central issue for me is, of course, that the world is turning to its darker face, and over-tourism is one element of creating that apprehension that is in the air, that is leading to things like populism and so on. But when you just really observe people, here are classic people. This is a version of Claudio in Sydney working in the art gallery. Now, I mean, it's not really you, but it could be you. But it's all of us. And I love this guy, you know, we've got where he's going to sleep with all the cities on, and then someone who's also on the move trying to get some money. But I'm just trying to remind us of what we all already know that's happening, is that place, space, and time are transfiguring. And that is obviously one of the major issues in the world. And I just picked this up in Vancouver. I don't know if you noticed, but it suddenly said, it was just a coincidence, it said roots. And this says everything for me. This guy in the airport in Vancouver has a bag that says roots. I don't know if he's got roots. He probably has. We've all got roots. We've all got multiple identities, all of this sort of stuff. But how place is then transfiguring, and this gives us more opportunity to spread and think through, which is obviously the rise of third spaces that could be anything, not only the cafe and so on. Here's obviously a library doing that. It can also be a banking hall. This is the main bank in Antwerp. You probably know it. The bottom floor is a startup center, a communal space, and the bank is actually on the 5th floor. This is the headquarters of the Deutsche Bank in Berlin. When you go in there, you think, am I in a meditation center or something? What's going on here? You know, sort of poetry readings and, hey, isn't it cool? And then at the back somewhere is a banking facility. So what I'm just thinking about when I think about this mass of people, this massive opportunities, there are so many places and things that could be transfigured that are places where people will go. But what I'm really saying is that there are a lot more than just tourists moving around. There's probably 1 billion people moving in one way or another. This just happens to be the guest workers, guest in quotes, the slave workers of Dubai. No wonder he's running away and happy. But that's just a variation of the 10 million in the Middle East there. There are, of course, the refugees, which is about 68 million, who have moved from a country to another. Obviously, more internal refugees than that. And then there are all the students, the millions of students. These are none of those, I mean, this is in London, but of course, these people all come from all over the world. And then there are the other versions of, you know, travel, which we all know about. And what I find quite interesting is when you look at the reasons why people are moving, and when they're moving, some of them, of course, working. They are expats. They're actually trying to give something back. So the question always to me here in this movement is, what are you giving and what are you taking? Is it only a transaction or is it a relationship? So the key question for me is, what is the relationship, and is it a relationship of meaning? I mean, as you know, the vast tourism to do with beauty and all of that. The butt lift capital of the world, as you know, is Brazil. There are lots of other things. The Thai tourism industry is obviously based on basic instincts, as it says here, is quite threatening in its own way. The other thing that I find so interesting, the promise of globalization was diversity and difference. The result, unfortunately, is sameness. Every bus here, you can go, you're going traveling from Berlin to Sydney, is in essence the same. So what do we do? The other thing that we need to be aware of in this thinking through, and I'm just trying to broaden the amount of this movement, is of course criminality. I saw this in southern Italy. I love Italy. I lived there. I studied there. But it did say bar, angel and devil in Basilicata. But that question of crime on the move is another one of the greatest movements, criminals moving around in their thousands, and of course money at the speed of light moving around. And those that operate with that money are moving, and they're all contributing to this 1 billion people on the move, not only those tourists, of which are hundreds of millions. And the other thing on this move is, if you've got a lot of money, you can go to the courts and become a citizen of many countries. The cheapest country you can move to at the moment in Europe is Cyprus. The cheapest in the world is Dominican Republic. And in this movement and homogenization, of course, brands do that. I think there are 35 million Coca-Cola outlets in the world. There are 39,000 McDonald's. etc., etc., and cargo containers moving. I'm just trying to make you giddy, basically, and get a bit of a headache, and just remind us that it's not only that tourism thing, it's really a global world that has shifted, and of course, one of the big moves in the world is the movement of pollution, and of course, the English language, which is at some time useful, but at other times a pain in the neck. I mean, you know, in cafes in Berlin, when someone can not even say hello in German, it's a bit much. And you have seen these revolts about people not even trying to speak the language in the country they are in. And of course, all of this is enabled by the massive breakthrough, and I don't need to talk about that, which is the one of the digitizing world that has only really just begun, and its controlled features and its immersive qualities. I wonder how many of you have not looked at their mobile phone in the last 2 hours, just as one example of that. And then, if you added that up, you shouldn't really say paradigm shift too often. I think the collection of all of these things coming together is the bigger context within which the tourism flow is one of the most important, clearly. And within that, of course, I didn't go into this Google train in Sydney. I'm telling you why, because I was shit scared. If I got into that train, I didn't know what would happen to me as I was sucked in by big data or whatever else I would have been sucked into. And of course, when the biggest hotel chain in the world, Airbnb, has no hotel rooms of its own, or the biggest taxi company, perhaps Uber, has no taxis of its own, and the biggest media company, Facebook, doesn't really produce any of its own media, we of course know the world has transfigured dramatically. But of course it has its incredibly potentially positive flip side, the ability to reduce resources. It's the condition, one of the conditions of course, the circular economy, one of the conditions that may enable us to decarbonize the economy and the city and so on. So in sum, this tension point, and this is why in the end it is all about politics. It is about politics in the end. It's about hard, difficult decisions, is in this both exciting and scary context that we're both in. And I think if we just look at the environmental questions, that of course comes home very sharply. But as I said earlier, it's this reconfiguring space, place and time, words that are so easy to say, but actually transform the way we have to even think about anything. And therefore, we need to dare to be, to some extent, brave and courageous in rethinking the rules system in quite a dramatic way. And that, of course, is to do with political choices. Because what we are, as it says here, in the midst of redesigning the world and all its systems, and practically because we know the consequences, because the leaders like Barcelona, Amsterdam are there, if we're talking tourism, then we might as well begin to think of what those new rules and incentives are. So that obviously requires a vision of the future places we live and inhabit, and it requires, of course, courage, tenacity, boldness, being a shit, being difficult, you know, all of that sort of stuff, being willing to counteract interests, and so on. So that's all I've got to say, for the moment at least, anyway, unless you ask me a question.
No, stay there, stay there. Thank you so much for confusing us also a bit. Because
confusing, of course, I'm sorry,
yes,
I apologize,
yes.
I didn't mean to.
Everything is on the move, so where does it leave us, right? Okay, so there's a question. We need a political... It's political, you say, as well.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And do you see a new politics on the rise?
Well, of course, you see it. I
mean,
you know, obviously, you're living in Barcelona, so that's a variation of that new politics. If you take a helicopter view of the world, you can see all of these things happening. Not the problem, but the fact that obviously traditional party ways of operating are disappearing. What we've got so much is fragments. And so the big challenge today, for me at least, from my perspective, is how you bring these radical or interesting fragments together in some sort of way. And that is really difficult. And I'm not sure if you ask me what's the answer, it's very difficult to bring those fragments together.
Yes, and if these fragments come together, then there's also the question, in this world that you're portraying, those fragments can be from everywhere, right? I mean,
they can be from everywhere. I mean, look, if we just took a random example, because I happened to speak to them this morning, if you took the network of impact hubs, which are about 103 around the world, very interesting organizations, there's one obviously here in Amsterdam, and they are essentially hubs of social innovation and enterprise, so they're for enterprising, but they've got a bigger purpose. So everything, you can see that. Now, if you somehow could bring those movements that both operate at a global level with those that operate locally in various forms of partnership, then you're beginning to get strength. Because, I mean, and then you align it with other movements. Where I live, next door, the cafe next door is where the Extinction Rebellion was founded, I mean, literally next door. So that sort of movement, which is obviously proud that it did something, at the moment is completely disconnected from these things like Impact Hub, which is just only an example.
Yes, so in that way, do you see a parallel then? Because it makes me think of, okay, so you had the Industrial Revolution. Afterwards, there was a big political shake-up, and new types of parties came into existence, also on a worldwide scale, in fact.
Well, we're in the middle of that thing at this very moment, which is why my other obsession later in the week is about the creative bureaucracy, how you rethink public administrations and how you dare to bend the market to bigger picture purposes. And there are examples, you know, the way that Berlin in Kreuzberg subverted Google. Google said, we're going to give you so much and it's going to be really cool. And they said, no, thanks, we don't want to be cool. Why don't you go in that really shitty area over there and make that cool? They, of course, said no.
Okay, so okay. So we were drifting a little bit off. If we're going to talk about Google,
I'm sorry.
It's my fault because I asked you about politics. Okay, questions from the audience. Yes.
You mentioned these vortex cities. Can you explain a bit why people are drawn to these cities and how maybe we can attract people to other smaller cities?
Yeah, I mean, a vortex city is obviously a place that sucks in resources, talent and opportunities, essentially, or skill and expertise. Usually they start off with some assets, which may be historical. You know, it may be having been the capital of or being a capital of a country, being a capital of an empire historically. So they've got lots of resources already. Prior to this wave of globalization, they were still important, but it didn't suck in at the same level, where basically what you've got is strategic headquarters, the high-level functions where the very ambitious people want to be, and then when the ambitious people are there, then others say, well, I want to make a better career. So the opportunities are much larger. But there are various movements. I mean, just taking Berlin as an example, there's a whole movement called Happy Locals, which is trying to shove people out of Berlin and say, you've got this small little place there, why don't you bloody stay there and be interesting there and visit us once a week? So the vortex cities are probably in Europe maybe 30, 40, but the rest are really, there are not that many cities that are really growing, by the way, if you look at it very closely. You know, how many cities in the Netherlands are really growing versus those that are slightly dependent on an Amsterdam. So a vortex city, all you can do is you can find your niches, one of the good things about secondary cities is often people pay more attention to when something happens there. If you did the most interesting festival of whatever in Amsterdam, it might disappear. If it happened to be in Enschede, people would say, wow, I didn't think they could do that, or whatever, you know what I mean? Sorry, I love Enschede, don't worry.
Who is from Enschede here? Yeah, someone? No. Oh, you didn't, yeah, it's okay. Other questions, yes.
Hello, I'm curious to know what your hometown is.
My hometown is a combination of nothingness, because I'm often on the move, and so my head is spinning. So I'm near the middle of nowhere, but my hometown is a place called Stroud. If you look it up, it's very sort of an alternative place, so I probably was attracted to it. It's one of the, doesn't matter, it's just a small place.
Country?
Stroud, S-T-R-O-D.
Where is it? Where is it?
It's in Gloucestershire. It's in the Cotswolds, but it was a wool town, Industrial Revolution town, but it's very near a place which is very, very, very attractive and part of that.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I
can't. I was born in London. I lived in Munich. I've lived in various other places. Yeah.
Does it answer your question? Yeah. Okay. It did. Yeah. But are you one of these nomads as well that you portrayed?
Look, if you do things and write things, you're normally mostly talking about yourself. Why did I write a book called The Civic City in a Nomadic World? Because I thought, where the fuck do I belong, is what I thought.
Okay. There's a question here.
Hi. First, thank you for being here and talking today. Really interesting. I was mostly wondering, you ended saying that there is a new role for politics in this game of the nomadic cities. But I'm actually thinking about the trend of neoliberalism in a lot of big European cities and outsourcing a lot of the problems in the city space to companies taking care of that. And to a certain degree, I think Amsterdam and Partners as an organization is part of that neoliberal trend where the government is outsourcing these jobs to companies that take care of it, for example, with smart city initiatives. And I'm mostly thinking how you perceive the role of such companies in these nomadic cities, if they can stop it, if they perpetuate the problem, and how do you see the future of politics in that, since politics have a level of agency and they can be held accountable for the decisions they make, and companies, in the end of the day, will mostly think about money and investments.
Right, there are about 9 questions in there.
No, it was more a statement, right? But there was one question though. How do you view this neoliberal trend?
I think there's degrees of neoliberalism, and I suppose once you're infected by the virus of neoliberalism, you're already an evil. But you know what I mean. But I think you have to make a distinction, because some organisation, not every organisation that's collaborating with a public entity is neoliberal. I think one of the big shifts that's coming is that public authorities are giving away power for creative influence, and that's a completely different approach. I mean, and that I regard as personally incredibly, potentially very helpful, and that's why I'm very interested in new ways of collaborating between the civic world and that public administration world, which is what this whole creative bureaucracy business is about. So I think one has to look closely who. Now, on the bigger question of can we subvert neoliberalism, let's try. But I mean, do you see what I'm saying? I think one has to look closely is really my answer. I certainly think that the politics that I think most things have been reinvented, but democracy hasn't been reinvented, and therefore this sector thinking may be a bit inappropriate for how the world actually operates. Because, for example, a bureaucrat or a politician is also a private citizen and may be a civic person, but may also run a company. I mean, running a small company doesn't by definition mean you're a shit, I mean, in a sense, et cetera, et cetera. Sorry, I see you.
No, that's a good question. I'm just wondering how I'm going to ask a final question now, and because it ends on the important point that you make, right? I mean, it is about politics. This world is shifting, but the politics stay behind. Is that the way?
Yeah, I think a lot of things are behind. I mean, it's of course easy for me to just sort of, show some images and talk. I appreciate that's easy, but the key thing you raised is exactly right. When that the industrial revolution of the 150 years ago happened, politics did change, and we're just in that process now of transforming that, and that's really a task of the imagination and the experimentation. I think we're in the period of experimenting because we don't know the precise sustainable examples over the long term. We have lots of little examples, but that's not the same as something being embedded in a culture which is different.
Thank you so much for that last
Thank you.
statement. Charles Landry. Yeah. Let's talk to two people who are actually doing some of these experiments, grassroots experiments that maybe one day will change the world, like the Extinction Rebellion that started in a bar and conquered the world. Maybe with these two new initiatives on this topic of fair tourism, this will happen the same. Give them a warm welcome. Seto Veracruz, co-founder of Fair B&B. And Sabina Lynch of the Untourist Guide movement. Yes, please take a seat. I see a red nose. Why is that?
Hello, everybody.
Why are you wearing a red nose, Sabine?
Because the Untourist Guide stands for fun engagement or fun tribute. And this is for me a symbol of fun. I also think it's important that we are not taking ourselves too serious, and also that serious matters deserve humor.
Okay, good. Do you have more of these red noses? Should we put them on as well? Or? Yeah, yeah, you should have taken two more. Ha, that's a pity. I want to start with you, Seto. You're a co-founder of Fair B&B.
Yeah.
First of all, what is it?
Well, Airbnb is a vacation rental platform that is launching next month, actually, in 5 European cities.
You see it here? Yeah.
And well, it is I like to call it an impact-aware alternative with 3 different focuses of other vacation rentals, which are the sustainability, taking into consideration what we believe is the beginning for sustainability in the vacation rental sector, which is we only allow, we have the one host, one home policy, and we don't allow corporate-owned apartments. We are a cooperative, which means that our profit is limited by law, and also something quite important is that we cannot be bought because we are a cooperative. So all our members would need to accept to be acquired.
And the people who put on houses on Fair B&B, are they the members or are other people?
Not
members?
yet, actually. We aim to be a multi-stakeholder co-op, but right now is a workers-owned and investors-owned co-op. And the last biggest difference is that we charge a 15% commission, as more or less the average of other platforms, but we donate 50% of it, so 7.5% of commission is donated to a local project decided by our local community.
Okay, so it's very different actually from Airbnb, although the name is quite similar. How did you start this? What was the first idea? When did it start?
Well, actually, in my case, I started here in Amsterdam. I live here since 2012, and there is within an advocacy group here in Amsterdam, there was a working group about the vacation rental issue in the city. So we were thinking about, this was 2016, and we were thinking about new measures that the municipality could do, new ways of complying. So we were already talking about the 30 days, about banning in some areas, all the things that are happening now, the registration. But eventually we saw that it was not enough, that the platforms we needed also to approach how the platforms were behaving. And actually the key, if you think about vacation rental issues, the key is the sharing the data. I mean, as long as the cities don't have the data of what's going on, they cannot comply with, they cannot make the regulations compliant, and they don't actually know what happens. So we started why not creating a sustainable one, and how could be a fair B&B.
Okay, so as a customer, so imagine I want to come to Amsterdam, I register as a customer. Is it any difference, the experience from Airbnb?
The only difference is that at the end of your reservation, well, now in this first beta phase, you will be informed to which project are you donating part of your commission. And in the future, the idea is that you will be able, as a traveler, to be the last one deciding to which project you want to donate the money. But all the rest, the user experience should be the same, both for host and for guest, and that is very important, actually.
Okay, yeah. And how far are you at the moment? So you say you're going online next month?
Yeah, we are now it's possible already to sign up and to list already apartments. So for host can already upload their apartments. And next month,
so people here, if they want,
people,
they can all go to the website and register their apartment.
Please. Yeah. And from next month, it will be possible to do already reservations in Barcelona, Venice, Bologna, Amsterdam, and Valencia, and Genova. Sorry.
Okay, good. And are you hopeful about the? Did you get a lot of people already? Or?
Yeah, well, we have quite a lot of interest and registered hosts. So
how many now in Amsterdam?
I actually don't know how many are registered, but.
Okay, well, after today, maybe more. Yeah, Sabina, you have another initiative, the Untourist Guide Movement. What is the Untourist Guide Movement, except for fun?
The Untourist Guide is a book that you can purchase with me later on, and also in the iAmsterdam store and in several bookstores. The Untourist Guide is also a website we launched officially. We are existing since 2 weeks. Ta-da.
Okay, congratulations.
What we want to invite people coming to Amsterdam to actually contribute to the city in a positive way. And we provide them with opportunities to do that by connecting social enterprises and non-profit organizations. So initiatives that are already striving for a better world here in the city, to connect them to visitors.
Okay, so imagine I come to Amsterdam.
Here you see a few examples. One is from Trash to Treasure. It's an experience you can do with the upcycle. People who know the upcycle is in the red light district. It shows you a different view of the red light district. You are invited to bring your trash to the upcycle, and they will explain you more about their vision. But you also be able to make your own souvenir with upcycled materials. So you can go home with a self-made souvenir, for example, a belt from an old bicycle tire. So it is a meaningful experience. You connect and you support an initiative like the upcycle.
Yeah, and at the same time, so you clean the streets actually, and then you go home with a souvenir.
And you go home with a souvenir that is really
and you have
authentic.
an experience that you wouldn't have otherwise if you would just go to Dam Square. Yeah. Okay. Feed the Dutch. What's that?
Feed the Dutch is a box, a picnic box you can get from the Bakkerswinkel at the Westerpark, and with a banner saying gratis picnic, kom er lekker bij. So it will only people who speak Dutch will understand what's
free picnic. Please join me.
Exactly. Yeah. So please join the picnic. So you actually invite somebody to your picnic. So you make a connection with a local person having
does it work?
A nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are. I mean, we are just starting out. We had 2 bookings already. So,
okay, yeah. But they had a picnic with someone they didn't know.
In the no, they still have to. They have to
still have to go.
It.
Okay,
yes,
okay.
yes,
yeah,
yes.
So we don't know.
Yeah.
Weed dating. What is that?
Weed dating is in collaboration with the Tuinen van West, so the orchids of the West. You get a bicycle tour to the gardens, and you help plugging the weed, and at the same time getting to know a person. Like you do it together, you do it in pairs, like the picture shows.
Yeah. So what I like about the 2 initiatives of you is you make a very direct contribution actually to the to the city of Amsterdam or even to the neighborhood where you're staying.
Yeah.
What kind of initiatives are you supporting in Amsterdam, or how does that work? What type of?
So far, we are collaborating with 2 projects in Zuidoost and in Amsterdam-North, and both are community projects relating with urban gardening, which is Urbania Groef in the north and Bloei en Groei in Zuid.
Yeah.
And the idea is to empower community projects, open community projects where people can gather together, because actually we know that one of the issues now with tourism that is we're experiencing, or at least I am experiencing, is that I don't know who are my neighbors anymore, and we would like to foster more community interaction with the project we fund.
Yeah, and maybe a question to the two of you is, if you dream about the future, and think through your ideal tourism in Amsterdam, how would that look like? What would be different than now?
It will be more participated, of course. It will be easier to regulate, better regulated, and it will support good causes, and it will support better initiatives in the city, I think.
Yeah. Does that go for you as well?
Yeah, kind of similar. And a fellow speaker before us mentioned that it's not only tourism, it's a movement, like a global movement going on. And we actually support the idea of, right now, I don't know how many, maybe there are 1.5 million, 2 million people in the city of Amsterdam. So we inhabit the city right now. It doesn't matter if you're born here, if you come if you live here for a few years, if you're an asylum seeker, it doesn't matter. You're a human being, you are here right now, and how can we make the city more sustainable, more livable, more fun, more social together?
Okay, so that's what you say.
And I envision a city, and actually we want to make an example in Amsterdam, and we hope it will grow further than Amsterdam. Yeah. So we, starting in Amsterdam, having a city that is has like the positive impact of everybody coming here, being here, contributing in a positive way to the city.
So in your idea, the perfect tourist is a tourist who is a local. You're a local everywhere.
There is no difference between local and tourist. We are all here inhabiting the city, and everybody is like taking responsibility for your being and for your fellow being.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Audience, questions? Yes. Go ahead.
So what if Airbnb would change their whole policy based on your principles? So they would open their data, they would not allow corporate housing and other things you were mentioning. What would you think of that?
Embrace it.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
That would mean that the world is going better, but I mean, it's not going to happen, unfortunately. I mean, of course, if Airbnb would be doing that, if Airbnb wouldn't be needed, of course.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Hi. First of all, thank you for the talk. I don't want to be the negative Nancy at all. However,
but you're going to be, right?
I'm going to ask a tough question. I donated to the cause because I think it's an interesting experiment. But I wonder, I come from Porto in Portugal and from Amsterdam. Both are becoming highly touristic cities. I've lost housing. My family has lost housing because of it. And I wonder, an initiative like this, how do you deal with the fact that it's another added platform? I made a list of the Porto holiday rental platforms, and it reaches into the 30, 55, 50 growing every day. I'm wondering how you deal with that, because it will still take housing away.
Yes, it is, and it is a possibilistic project. I mean, it is a project that is aware about what is happening, and instead of just being in the denial of we don't like this, we don't want it to happen, we try to make it happening in the best way. But we support limits, actually, temporary limits, and limits like the one established in Amsterdam, in the sense of limiting where can it be and where can it be, cannot be. But it is something, and we support municipalities doing that. And we actually, when we do consultancy for cities, we always talk about the possibility of limiting this type of vacation rentals. We don't want to, and we limit ourselves already without having corporate-owned apartments, because of course we believe it is against our values very much. And even though We know that secondary houses are already taken out of families. We don't want to go that far because otherwise would be impossible to run the project in many cities. So we see it as something we will collaborate, of course, that we will encourage, and something that needs to be approached from a local, regional, and national perspective.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, an extension of that question, actually. I'm wondering if you have any information or data on if the members of your platform are people who were formerly renting out over Airbnb or different platforms and are moving platform. So instead of offering a larger market for people to offer their places on a rental website, you're replacing the current system with, in yours, a better system.
Yeah, well, so far the data we have is we are not adding almost any new apartment. We are almost everybody in the vacation rental sector have their apartments in more than one platform, and we are only another one. There is not exclusivity, and yeah, we don't want to think that we are actually opening the market to new housing, but just opening the possibilities to existing users, which is mostly what is happening actually so far as we know.
Yes.
So I was wondering, how do you select the cities that you launch for Airbnb? So do you look at the cities that already have overtourism phenomena happening, and would you consider going to the cities that don't have such problem already to prevent this?
Well, so far, and what is going to happen actually in the coming, for sure, 1 year, and who knows if we will keep the same policy for longer time. We open cities where we have people that can support us, and actually we are opening the cities where the co-founders are located, so we can have talks with hosts and with the municipality in person. And we are opening already the partnership program to opening new cities, always with a partner that can be in the city and manage the resources also in a local level and be there in case something happens.
Yeah, same goes for Sabina Lins. Are you also thinking about writing other guides, other cities?
Well, the book is one thing. It's more the movement behind it. So I would like to invite everybody who's here and to connect to us and to seek collaboration.
Yeah, so what kind of project are you particularly looking for? Is there a certain type of project that you're looking for that people...
No, because like it was mentioned as well, to create an inclusive model. So we are in touch with hotels and hostels, with people, guides in the tourism industry, with the study in Holland. But of course, the core business is the social enterprises and non-profit organizations in the city we connect to, and we invite with us together to develop new activities.
And is there any threshold? I mean, I can imagine that a lot of projects in Amsterdam can use some free labor, right? But should it also be fun for the tourist, or?
Well, I'm not sure if I understand your question right.
Well, I can imagine that a lot of people. This may be a joke, but if you want to have your house cleaned and
yes.
you,
to
can you
have
also subscribe?
Yes. We don't have a way of a platform yet, but it was one of our ideas to have a festival where this would be possible, where people can say, hey, I need some help in the garden, or help me paint my windows, and that people could do that and help. So eventually,
that would be good
yes,
too. Yes. Okay. I want to wish you both good luck with your initiatives. Next month, we're going to look at Airbnb. We can see the guide now already, right? Did you bring a...
The guide, and online we have the antouristguide.com, so you can visit it.
And the physical guide, is it available?
Yes, it's 10 euros.
We can get it later.
And
here?
you can buy it if you don't want to buy it now. You can check it out online. you can buy it also online.
From our side, just saying that we're not only looking now for users and hosts, but also for collaborators and partners in Amsterdam and other cities. So if you're interested, info@fairbnb.coop, or just let me know.
Okay, Seto Beracruz, thank you. Sabina Lins, thank you. Okay, we're going to have a presentation again. We're going from Amsterdam because we were on the international level, now national level. Now we're going to the city of Rotterdam. It's a sidestep. The city of Rotterdam has co-created a new tourism policy. And it's interesting because they recently did this, and maybe there are some things and findings or experiences that are relevant to the city of Amsterdam and other cities as well. Give him a warm welcome. He's a strategic advisor at Rotterdam & Partners, the marketing organization of the city of Rotterdam, Ewout Versloot.
Good afternoon. The tough thing for me to give a presentation at somewhat the end of the program is that you hear so much before you. People are talking about stuff and they're kind of inspiring you. So I was kind of thinking, okay, where should I begin? And I think I should start here. Who of you do actually live in Amsterdam? By show of hands. Quite a lot. First of all, congratulations, because you must have a lot of money. And second of all, I'm not here to solve your problems. I'm really not. Because I sense in the room a little bit that you're looking for actual solutions to your over-tourism problem, yeah? I'm not going to provide them, no. What will try to give you is some different perspective maybe on how cities, or as we now call them, destinations, could look at tourism in the first place. So, for those who don't know, Rotterdam is quite different than most other places in the Netherlands. We don't have too many tulips. We only have a few windmills. We don't have grachten, but we have singels. And you know, we have something we call architecture, and we love it. So this is us, and we're a bit different. But the biggest difference right now, talking about tourism, is that we only have like 8% of the number of overnight stays in hotels that Amsterdam has. So you could say that, you know, Rotterdam doesn't really have an over-tourism problem. And what used to be in, you know, the DMO world or the tourism world is that you either had a problem with tourism and you were trying to find solutions, or either you didn't have a problem with over-tourism and you were, you know, doing the things you were always doing, right? Now, we don't have as many overnight stays as you have, but we are becoming more popular. And for people from Amsterdam, that might be a bit weird, but we are. Trust me. Really? We are. So more and more people are coming to visit Rotterdam. And, you know, that popularity, that brings jobs. And we Rotterdammers think it's a bit strange. A few years ago, a book was published called Help, We Are Popular, which is pretty weird to us. But that actually brings us in a luxury position. Because, you know, we are profiting from tourism. We are profiting from the jobs they bring. We are profiting from, you know, visitations and actually, you know, having a fun city center, which you didn't have. But at the same time, we can also look to our big brother, 50 kilometers up north, and see what it is to become too popular, right? Well, that's something quite new. But the thing is, this needs a change in perspective. Because we started by asking the question, who is a tourist, is a fair tourist? Who of you is a tourist in general? By show of hands. Who would call himself a tourist? Some don't even put their hands up. Who's a traveler, maybe then? Yeah, something like that. We're all tourists, aren't we? Right now, you're probably a tourist. Yeah. So, and what do you think you look like to cities and DMOs? You look like this. You are a little bag of money with a selfie stick. And I, as you know, working at a DMO, hope that you leave some money in the city that you're visiting and you leave again. So this is what you are to us. A little bag of money. Please bring it in, leave it, and go away again. The reality, of course, that you look more like this. You're a human being, aren't you? And you have impact on the economy, but you also have an impact on the sustainability of places, or the ecology of places, and the livability of places, and the identity of a place, don't you? You're a human being. So once you realize that, a city should change their perspective from tourism are there to promote the economy to we can use tourism to achieve goals and ambitions that we have at the city in all these areas. The thing is, then tourism policy becomes a lot harder. Because instead of telling Rotterdam partners or Amsterdam and partners, as we should call them now, attract as much tourists as you can, you're going to tell them, yeah, we want the right kind of tourists to the right kind of places and not to other places. Which is quite hard, isn't it? But we're working towards a new vision. It's not totally true in the introduction. We don't have a policy in place. We're working towards a new vision. And again, I'm calling it a vision, not policy. Because I don't believe there's such a thing like tourism policy. No, we need a tourism vision. We have an alderman for tourism, Said Kasmi, and he asked us, Rotterdam partners, to help him with this. And let's see if we can use, and this is an experiment, we haven't done this before, if we can use tourism as a means to an end. Not as a goal in itself to improve the economy, but as a means to an end. Which might mean that we in Rotterdam, who have quite big ambitions in the energy transition department, should think how tourism can contribute to the energy transition, which is quite hard, because by definition, a tourist brings with him more CO2 emissions than a regular inhabitant, doesn't he? So yes, it is quite hard. But if you think about it, and you move beyond that, look, for example, to hotel policy. Right now, we have not really any hotel policy in Rotterdam. Which means that if you come to Rotterdam and you want to start a hotel, you can. And right now we say, that's fine, because we don't have too many tourists, so please come in. But at the same time, we have different areas in Rotterdam who have different needs and different ambitions. And some of them could use extra visitors for that local economy. Other places in Rotterdam, you might not believe this from Amsterdam, but other places are quite okay. De Witstraat doesn't really need that much extra tourists anymore. That's okay there. So a new hotel policy should be implemented now, not because the city as a whole needs it, but because of the Witstraat might have enough, and the Afrikanenwijk might use some extra tourists to that place. That's how we should think about it. So first, zoom out. We're not talking about tourism, we're talking about the city and what your city needs as a whole. Then look, how can tourism contribute to that, and then see what means you have to actually implement this. We had help doing this. Claudio was part of the International Advisory Board we organized a month ago. I'm working on a report right now, and I can tell you it's a hell of a job. But Claudio is going to help me, so that's nice. And we'll publish it this summer, and after the summer we'll publish our new vision. And I really hope, and again, this is an experiment. I'm not saying this will work, but we're trying to provide new perspectives on how, from a management perspective, you can actually make tourism work for your city. That means, first and foremost, that I, at Rotterdam Partners, should have different KPIs, key performance indicators. My key performance indicator right now is make sure there are more bed nights next year than this year. About 4, 5, 6% a year. Yeah? But that KPI doesn't say anything to me. For example, August, for us, is one of the busiest months a year if you talk about hotel bed nights. Yeah? Well, it's the same, in terms of hotel revenue, it's one of the worst months in the year. So the number of overnight stays or bed nights doesn't say anything about the effect of tourists on the economy. So we have to be more intelligent. The thing is, we just don't know how yet. But we're trying, and it starts with zooming out, zooming in again, experiment, start pilots, learn, share, and try again. Thank you.
Thank you for the view from Rotterdam. Questions? No questions? Yes, there are. Yeah. Oh, you have another question.
Well, yeah, then actually, I don't know if you can give an example of some of the projects or pilots you're thinking of at the moment. Because I'm still stuck.
No, wait. Let him answer that question, because otherwise, yeah. First, give an example of the pilots.
Yeah, one of the pilots we should do, so we're not starting it yet, but I think what we should do is see if we can come up with 3 neighborhoods and start talking to the people who actually live there and the entrepreneurs who are actually living there, and see what are their needs and ambitions. That's the bottom-up part. And at the same time, we should see from top-down part, okay, what can we actually do here? Because, you can say we need a new hotel in the Afrikanerbijk, but if no one wants to invest there, that's going to become a problem. But what I like, one of the recommendations from the International Advisory Board that I like most, that I think we should implement between now and 1 or 2 years, is to see if we can implement a neighborhood grant system to, in certain areas, see if we can, with the community, create visitable objects, projects, place-making stuff that helps attract the type of visitor that area needs. That's what I'm interested most right now, and see if we can recreate that.
Did you have a follow-up question?
Well, I was mostly then thinking of how would you compare then the city marketing that Rotterdam is going for compared to the city marketing that Amsterdam has been doing over the last years, which is now drastically changing, but the Amsterdam. Because if you want to address different tourists, I also assume you have a different marketing plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the what's our luck, basically, is that we don't have a lot of money. But the thing is that because Rotterdam is so different from the rest of the Netherlands, not just Amsterdam, is that we attract a different kind of tourist, almost automatically. People who I'm not sure if you're familiar with the personas created by the National Bureau for Tourism and Conferences, but Amsterdam attracts what they call the heritage seeker. They're interested, and we are attracting what they call the independent explorer. I'm not going to explain those personas to you, but you probably know what I mean. So we are, by definition, attractive for another type of tourist, which kind of helps us. Yeah, it kind of helps us.
Yeah, and in your tourism policy, did you also, in this whole phase, did you also talk about this idea of that the definition of a tourist is somewhat sketchy, because we're becoming all world travelers, and we can study in a place for a couple of months or years, or work in a place for a week. Yeah.
Well, one of the first things the International Advisory Board advised us right now, because they were asked to think with us on a vision for tourism, right? And they said, well, let's not talk about tourism. Let's talk about the visitor economy. Because we should be talking about visitors. Because, the lines are blurring so much. And, we have this conversation all the time. Are we talking about, international visitors, national visitors, people from Barendrecht, or maybe even people from one neighborhood who are visiting another neighborhood? And they're not all tourists, I guess, but they're all part of the visitor economy.
Okay, so that's also what you implemented that, or you're implementing this idea of talking about visitors.
Well, just to be clear, we from Rotterdam Partners are trying to make sure this will be implemented in the municipal vision. Yeah.
Are you hopeful?
I am, yeah.
Okay, that's good. We'll ask you back to explain how the rest of the process goes.
Cool.
Thank you so much for now. Ewout van Sloot. We're a little bit behind time, but I'm going to make sure that we finish in time, so don't worry. Next, I want you to give a warm welcome to the board member of the Touristic Entrepreneurs Platform Amsterdam-North, Eva de Klerk. Yeah, Eva. Because I promised you all that we would go down to the neighborhood level, and we're going to do that right now. First of all, Eva de Klerk, you're a board member of this entrepreneurs platform, Amsterdam-North. How long does it exist, this platform?
TOP was started in 2007 by some touristic entrepreneurs in the north. Because I don't know, most of you might not know, but 20 years ago, the north of Amsterdam wasn't even on the tourist map. So
it was not only not on the tourist map, but I think also
it was not on the map. Yeah, it was sort of not on the map. Yes,
I remember this banner saying, if you arrive with a ship, there was this banner. It said Amsterdam-North is also Amsterdam, and I found that all.
Yeah, yeah, and it also we have very strong key values in the north of Amsterdam, and I was happy to hear that last night at the opening of the WeMakeThe.City festival, our alderman Udo Kok was referring to WeMakeThe.City, and especially referring to the Amsterdam-North, because it's a place of makers and of community-driven initiatives.
Yeah.
But so it was like top started in 2007.
And you yourself, when did you start to become involved in tourism?
Well, I started with redeveloping an old shipbuilding warehouse in the north of Amsterdam with unemployed mothers, skateboarders, some boat workers and craftspeople and makers. And it was such a derelict neighborhood. Everybody said we were crazy to go there, but we built and financed and designed our own city in a warehouse, so with 250 people. So we are totally into cooperative city development.
Yeah, and that little warehouse became a place for tourists to go?
And then now suddenly it's a tourist attraction. We're often in The Guardian, the top 5 places to visit in Europe, and the people come to the NDSM shipyard and they come and they're, oh, but what's there to do? You know, because of course we have our festivals and we have our flea markets every month, but most of the time it's a beautiful, quiet neighborhood where a lot of makers are making and working. And so that's...
Okay, so in the same time, because you said it started in 2007.
Yeah, it started in 2007.
Then tourism in Amsterdam was also completely different in the whole city, right? How did you see the developments?
It was totally, like at that time, it was like, how can tourists, how can we benefit or economically prosper? You know,
how can we get as many of these rich tourists as the picture that we saw?
But in the north of Amsterdam, because it was not so well known and it was just starting, and when we came in, you know, it became trendy and hip, etc. And then the Keuvel came, etc. Many other initiatives. But even then, in 2007, some of the touristic entrepreneurs were really worried, like, how can we promote our business to tourists? So it was first set up as promoting the interests or the businesses of touristic entrepreneurs. And I just joined the board 3 years ago. And we noticed the shift at the moment. You know, the touristic entrepreneurs that are part of our platform, they don't need to be promoted anymore by us. So we have been now shifting more like, how can we balance this tourism? Because I don't know if you know, if you read the Dutch newspapers, there's going to be this tsunami coming to the north of tourism. That really makes you frightened and powerless, you know. And I think it's so horrible to frame this like that, because in the north we don't feel powerless. We're very active, community projects, a lot of citizens. I lived there for 15 years. We have a lot of entrepreneurs. We have a lot of housing organizations and citizen initiatives, etc. So we want to, and because of all the problems in the city center, and I was very surprised and happy to hear Rotterdam and Partners, because we really need an alderman for tourism. There's only 2 people working on tourism at the city council, and we want to influence.
Yes, but so to get a picture, so you were, you know, working in a neighborhood that was not really on the tourist map.
Yeah.
At the same time, this growth in tourism and also the discussion about doesn't it get too much started.
Well, it's also
how did that influence the way you're working as a entrepreneurial board?
Well, I've always been a sort of special entrepreneur. I attract people that especially come for the NDSM to Amsterdam. So I give tours and expert meetings for thousands of young students, architectural centers, etc. I also have a skate park. I've built the only 3 indoor skate parks in Amsterdam, one at the NDSM, which was evicted, and now we also attract international skateboarders. So in that way, we have a lot of initiatives in the north that attract a certain public. We have these housing collectives or sustainable houseboats. We have the Cultuurtafel. We have a fund for Nords, all set up by the people themselves.
So maybe it's more important than who do you not attract, right?
Well, we do. We don't think tourism as a negative thing. We just don't want it to become negative like it's been framed, or it is experienced in a negative way like all the big cities. So that's why we really want to participate in this policy making. We want to be at the table with the entrepreneurs, with the citizens, with the city council, and make a policy. When we come now, they say, oh, we're only spreading tourism. so it's not in our plan to create a platform for sustainable tourism. But I said, okay, but when you spread tourism, what is your vision? What is your plan? There is none. Although they're great, the people at the city council, they're working their best.
Sure.
I don't want to be offensive because they are trying. Yeah. But we want to have an element of for tourism as well. But we really want, and that was what Claudia was also saying, sustainable or sustainability. It's 4 principles. It should be economically sustainable, it should be socially sustainable, it should be administrative sustainable, and that is the governance. Can you influence? Are you part of the decision making? Sustainable, and then technical sustainable as for respect for the environment. So this governance part that Claudio also mentioned, I find that very important for us.
And now maybe the most important bit, before we go to one of the presentations about the tourists in the north, is why, as an entrepreneur, I mean, I understand that you are doing this and you want to be able to influence tourism policy in a way that's sustainable and so forth. But why, there's lots of entrepreneurs who just want to make money. That's the basic thing as an entrepreneur, right? Why would you, slow down tourism?
Well, I think we can benefit from the money of tourism to invest in livability, sustainable issues or social impact projects, etc. So, and I think because we are such a community in the north, like we now did we asked some students, they will present their story after me, because we try to now, not only as entrepreneurs, we want to negotiate with the citizens and the tourist itself. That is because we are all tourists. And what was I going to say?
My question was, why would you want to, I mean, I understand you want to do this,
because we have a love for our place. We are such, like also Amsterdam-North, it's a very close and well-connected networks of all these community bottom-up projects. We are a place of makers, of doers, but we are all very bottom up, very grassroots.
But what could happen, of course, is that a Hilton or any international hotel chain or Airbnb, the biggest hotel chain in the world, is influencing.
Yeah, and that is what we want to influence. There are certain things like we have this like nightmare that tourism tickets, they're buying hotels and bars and shops, etc. How can we change that? How can we make sure that there's different shops, or what sort of hotels, or where, or the Buikslotermeerplein, the Winkelcentrum? There are so many things to benefit and to change, but we have to do it together.
Okay, so you say local entrepreneurs are actually benefiting from the fact that we can sort of...
But also citizens should benefit from that. I think Verbier is a great example. There's also a great example in Landelijk-Noord, which will also be in a panel discussion. They had a co-creation about sessions about tourism in the rural area of the north. I don't know if we...
Yeah, there's some villages there. One time you're in the city, and then
some of the bed and
you're in the
breakfast
countryside.
People have already started. Let's work together and let's do our bed and breakfast, and let's put some money that we earn into solving the problem with all the bicycles parking in our neighborhood, because it's a very small, very rural area with all these little villages. But now suddenly all these bicycles come, they park and they're annoying, but they're trying to find a solution to make it better.
Okay, we'll talk about that later. Okay, so now we have 2 students that did a project in Holland. In Amsterdam-North. What can you say about the project that they did?
Well, for us, we really want to co-create. We really want to work on new policy for sustainable tourism, in which more stakeholders can influence or be part of the decision-making process. And what we learned, then we met in Holland. They have a urban leisure and tourism lab right in the north, and we created a vision with TOP. We created our vision on tourism, and we asked them to reflect on that. And they gave us a lot of great insights, like what is the role of the tourist itself? We have no idea what sort of tourists are coming to the north.
So
we asked these students to profile the north visitors.
Okay, so let's see what kind of tourist visits the north that you as an entrepreneur weren't even aware of. Koen van der Meer, the first student. Give him a warm welcome. You have a microphone, and you promised us to... Yeah, you brought a black box?
I brought a black box with me because we did... wait, I need to click. If I'm right, the green one, right?
Yeah, I can also do it if you want. You can hold the black box.
I'm clicking the wrong one.
It's the wrong presentation.
It doesn't go.
No worries, I can do it without.
No. We here.
It's really nice to see that.
Is something?
Here we,
Yeah.
this is the After movie. I'm not sure if it's gonna play. We can skip this. So.
Does it play? It's a movie.
It does play. Next. Next. Oh, this is all the photos. All right.
No. Something goes wrong, people.
There's no PowerPoint, but that's no worries. I can do it without because I brought my little black box with me. Because we tried to find out what happens in the head or in the black box of the tourist in Amsterdam-North. But first we had to find out who is the tourist in Amsterdam-North. And we did field research and observations, like you saw in the video. And what we found out was that there's three main groups who go to Amsterdam-North. That's the Germans, 30+ Germans. They come to the north. 30. And you have the American backpacker from the age between 20 and 30. And of course, we have the Dutch visitor who comes for a day, look how Amsterdam-North is, and then just goes home again. And what are they going to do in North? Well, we have the lovely letters. A couple of other talks already told us. We have the I Amsterdam letters in Amsterdam-North right now. And that is why they come to the north. During our observations, I followed a young lady. She came off the pond, the ferry, sorry, and I watched what she did. So she first opened her phone, she looked to the left, and if you're familiar with the area, to the left is where the letters are. She started walking, nearly got hit by a bicycle, kept on walking, went over the bridge, wait for 2, 3, maybe 5 minutes, so she got the whole sign, the I Amsterdam sign for herself, took a selfie, turned around, went back to the ferry, went back to the city. Look, I've been in Amsterdam, took the letters, see you later. That's one of many people we observed, and that's the biggest reason why they came to the north. Of course, we have the Adam Tower and the Eye, but only the tourists who actually did some research and checked out some brochures went there. And when we did the surveys, and I told them about that the Eye is also a cinema, they could not believe me that it actually was an active cinema as well. So they were not really educated about what you could do in Amsterdam-North. And of course, why did they come to the north? It was for that picture. The picture of the letters, of the I Amsterdam, a picture of the Eye, because the architectural of the building is really cool, but they have no idea what's inside. And if they were lucky, they could hear people on the swings at the top of the tower, and they were like, hey, I'd like to go there. That looks fun. Can I go there? And they'll try to find it. And some people did. Some people couldn't find the entrance. Unlucky. So that's why they tried to go to, or why they went to the north. And then you also want to know how they found the information about Amsterdam-North. How did they find out that Amsterdam-North is actually a fun place to go? Or at least did they know the letters are there? Because, well, that's the biggest reason they go there. And the biggest reason, and that's 42.1% of the people we surveyed, went there because of friends. They had mouth, word of voice, word of mouth, thank you. The friends told them about it. They saw pictures of their friends on social media. They went to Amsterdam and they asked, where did you take it? And then that's the reason why they went. The other big groups were internet with 34.8% and commercials with 33% flat. And those two have a little overlap with each other because on the internet you have commercials. And commercials are not just on the internet but also magazines and in the hotels. So right now, the biggest promotion the North has, or Amsterdam-North has, is word of mouth. So the experience they have there, it seems to be good. But there are still a couple of needs. And what they need is more. Because right now, like I said, there's 3 things. Well, actually 4, but we didn't. Another group did the NDSM-werf. But where I was, that's at the Overhoek, that's at the ferry straight to the other side. You have 3 things. The ladders, the Adam Tower, and the Eye. And that's it. That's why they go there. That is very little. So what they said is they wanted more. They spent the energy to go there, and now they want more. It's not just a picture. They are invested to go there. And what they try, so we had a couple of recommendations we got from all the results we got from our surveys, observation, and the whole research. And one of those things was place, you have a big grass field behind the Eye. Place something there, something for all ages. Think about a playing area for kids, a fountain. Maybe it's Amsterdam-North, a lot of creative people, a lot of artists. Make a little pop-up art center over there. Open air, you can walk there, random artists get their statues, paintings or whatever, place it there. You can walk there, you can check it out, you see it, no obligation, you're free to go and leave. After a few weeks, maybe a month, new art. You give artists who are in Amsterdam-North, who are maybe struggling to find a big audience, you give them an opportunity, and there's more for the tourist to see. Another thing is, like I said, I'm from Amsterdam-North myself, and something that really annoys me is the tourists that take the picture of the I Amsterdam logo, because there's no separation between the walkway and the biking area. So what I'll try to do is they'll take a picture, like, oh yeah, no, not yet, and they'll step back, and eventually they're on my biking lane. And I'll scream and shout 1 time, maybe 2 times if I'm in a good mood. But after that, it's just prepare for impact, because I'm not gonna move. Yeah, get out of my way, come on, you're in Amsterdam. And double points for if they fall over. And that's one of the big issues as well. The infrastructure over there is not safe. Not safe for tourists. If you're from Amsterdam and you step back, you know you have to check if there's something coming, because if you don't check, you will get hit by another person. The tourists don't know that. They're not used to that many bicycles. So there needs to be more. Besides that, there's also a lack of information, because those 3 things are fun to do in Amsterdam-North. But if you go a little bit further, you'll find a nice hipster, cool cafe. And across it, there's a VR arcade game hall. When I travel, that's the kind of place I'll try to find. I want to go where it's something that not everybody goes to, but the local people go to, and I find it very cool. And I think if they knew about it, it starts to become more relevant. More people will go there. They go deeper into the north of Amsterdam, not just on the water side. And I have a couple more, but I don't know them from mind. I needed my presentation.
Thank you for this report from Amsterdam-North. Koen van der Meer. Just brief 2 questions. First question I had is, the percentages you name, are they about the foreign tourists or not?
No, both.
No, with the microphone, please. Yeah.
Both foreign and the Dutch.
Okay, and the second question I had was, just briefly, these type of tourists that go to these letters and take a selfie.
Yeah.
We're talking about here about fair tourism and you know people doing neighborhood activities. Do you feel these type of people, these people would be interested in collecting waste and making it into a tourist souvenir.
Yeah, absolutely. We also asked, one of the questions in the survey was, what do you expect from the Amsterdam-North? And then we had a couple of bullet points, and one of them was culture and culture and something. And that's what nearly everybody crossed on. Everybody went to the North for culture and arts. So I think if you give them the opportunity to do something for the community or for experience the culture, the Dutch culture a little bit more, or maybe even just the Amsterdam-North culture, because it's really, what Eva already told, it's a very we-made culture. Everybody works together. And I think if they get the opportunity to be part of it, yes, they will try and join in.
Okay, thank you for that. Koen van der Meer. No worries. Now a fellow student developed a concept, I Amaze, and she's going to explain to us what that is. Kathleen Umbertstok. Do I pronounce it well? Or did I not pronounce it well?
Fine.
It's fine. Oh, fine is not. Yeah.
Well, I'm just gonna
Okay.
sit.
Yes. So you also went to Amsterdam-North.
Yes.
And what did you exactly do?
Well, our job was to develop a tourism product which would bring tourists and locals together by creating a platform for a meaningful encounter. So what I did with a project group is we developed I Amaze. And I Amaze is an online platform where locals can offer an activity based on 4 themes. Those themes are cultural, social, creative, and active.
Can you name an activity that would be placed on one of those?
Well, those were my pictures just now.
Okay, can we get them back? Let me see. Maybe here.
Yeah. So
Where do you
one
want
of
to
the
start? Here.
activities.
Oh no. Yeah, here.
So one of the activities was with, well, this is not with Mark, but was with Mark, and he did a walking tour through Amsterdam-North, a history, cultural type of thing, because the man knows everything about Amsterdam-North, and he likes sharing those stories with other people, so that's what he did. And another activity was, for example, a bicycle ride through Amsterdam-North and the SM Wharf. They went to the Keuvel together with a tourist alone, so... Yeah, those type of activities. Just
and do people do they do this for free, or why do they do this?
Well, they do that because Northerners are very proud people, so they would like to show their neighborhood to other people as well. And also, well, of course they get paid as well. So yeah.
Okay, so it's also they also earn some money with it. What do we see here?
Well, this was Mark, actually, who did the walking tour, and he had all these images of how it used to look like, and then they walked past it, and he could show them what had changed, and well, some historical stories I couldn't tell you because I don't know everything. He knows.
Yeah, and so you made this platform where these locals could offer their tours and services and activities.
Exactly. Any local who lives in Amsterdam-North who had and was willing to offer something could just participate. And everybody could participate because the 4 themes are so broad. So any type of activity could be placed in any type of theme.
Okay, and how successful was this?
Well, I tested it as well, and tourists were very excited about it because now they got to see the real, authentic North, and not just like he mentioned, go see the letters, take a picture, and then go back. Because you went deeper into the neighborhood, and you were actually with a local who could show you and tell you more about it. So yeah.
Yeah, so this authenticity, I believe it was the first lecture,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It has been in tourism for always. That is what people are looking for.
Exactly.
Is it still online? Is it being used, or
Well,
was this only a student project?
Well, this was my research actually for my final thesis. So I handed it in on Friday. Thank God. And I first want to see if I passed, and then I'm gonna see my options.
Okay. Oh, okay. I think you'll pass.
Just making sure.
Yeah, sure. Okay. And what is the biggest insight that this activity brought you? That this project brought you?
Sorry.
What is the biggest insight that you want to share after this project?
My biggest insight, well, that's actually quite difficult because I learned so much from it, and it can be quite easy because, one of the activities was a bicycle tour through North. I mean, that's easy to do. It's sustainable. It's fun. You see more. Like, it's not. You shouldn't be. You don't need to be like a tour guide or an expert or something. You can just be yourself and show them what you like, or do what you like.
Okay, so that also in your mind is maybe the way forward with tourism.
Yeah, because people. Well, not everybody, of course, but like those guided tours with like, I mean, it's so systematic or something. You know what I mean? And this is much more personal and much more, in that sense, authentic and fun to do then.
Okay.
Because
Thank
it's
you for
also with
sharing.
small groups. So.
Can we still see it actually online or not?
I did make a website, but I don't know if you have the link.
Oh, okay. So we'll.
Yeah, well, it's strikingly.imas.com.
Strikingly.imas.com. Okay. Thank you for sharing this project.
No
Kathleen Umbertstok. Okay. Finally, as last part of the program, we'll have a short panel discussion also with you as an audience. Okay, Eva de Klerk is staying on stage and will be joined by Sander Groet, founder of the Amsterdam Tower. One of the founders, I must say. And Peter van Lonkhuizen, and he is, as he calls himself, a Waterland fan. That means Waterland, the part north of Amsterdam, where there are still villages and cows, and it's actually countryside, and you're a fan of that. Maybe a first question to all three of you. We started this evening by talking about fair tourism and then over-tourism. Is over-tourism, it was a big discussion the past years in Amsterdam. Do you see that as a problem or not?
No. It's always in a negative way. And I see it also as an opportunity to develop other parts of the city. I think we should accept that some parts of the city are really popular and really crowded. And we have to create more of that kind of spots.
We have to create more crowded spaces.
Yeah. For example, the NSM is a good example. It has the opportunity, but also Westerpark, Arena area, maybe the Amsterdam Forest, that kind of spot, Marineterrein. Yeah.
Okay, so we should develop actually more to
and accept that it's crowded there. That is part of the tourism.
Okay, Peter van Lonkhuizen, do you view it in the same way?
No, as a Waterland fan, I would say yes. Over-tourism is a big issue, a big problem. I was thinking while I was listening here is fair tourism is the theme of today. Fair to what or to whom? So fair, should it be fair to the tourists, or should it be fair to the people living there, or both? So what do we mean by that? And one thing that I thought maybe a definition is it shouldn't destruct. So tourism shouldn't destruct. And in the Waterland area, which is a very, very nice agricultural area just bordering Amsterdam-North and also a part of Amsterdam-North, tourism is slowly starting to destroy the area. The villages are very small and very, very pretty. They are made up of wooden houses. The soil is very soft, so it is a peat meadow area, very soft, moist underground. And when you have buses going through, or very large groups going through, then it changes the entire region.
Okay, so you're afraid that more and more tourists come. Do you see this happening already?
Yes, it is. It is already happening. It is now really affecting the quality of living in the villages.
In what way? Can you give
For the people there, it is in the weekends you can hardly cross the street.
Because of?
Because of rows of bicycles or mopeds or stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, Eva de Klerk, I already asked you a little bit about the discussion, but do you see over-tourism as a problem or as a challenge?
Yeah, it's so. I can imagine it's so difficult to stop it in a way, but I do think we can deal with it in another way. So a mix between Sander and Peter. For me, it's very important that we, locals, entrepreneurs, and the politicians are co-creating, are in the decision-making process about how to handle tourism, how to put it in the right way. I think we should really be part of the governance.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the how, but maybe first to get a picture of how we see the ideal situation. Sander, goed, I'm interested. You're founder of the Amsterdam Tower. It's this big building. It attracts how many tourists a year?
Yeah, well, this year we will attract 800,000 people only on the observation deck. And in total, with the clubs and the restaurants, more than 1.2 million.
Yeah, and so how does, if we look at Amsterdam-North, because that's what we're talking about, you're right at the border of North and the center, how does the ideal situation of tourists look like? What is your ideal tourism view of Amsterdam?
Yeah, we still also attract a lot of local visitors, so 30%, 35% is from Holland, is from Amsterdam, so we're not only tourism, and some previous speaker also said about visitors or travelers. The ideal situation, of course, when we started, Amsterdam-North was not on the plan. It was 3 years ago, and it stopped at the central station. It was the city map. So we achieved that now the North Bank is also a part of the touristic destination.
Yes, you're also proud of that, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and we attract a lot of people, and a lot of people like it. And of course, we have a swing. You can say, it's a kind of Disneyfication of the city, but people like it. It's same as the Amsterdam letters. So people. My goal is to give people a nice time, and we succeeded with the Adam Tower.
Yeah, but then you listen to what your neighbor says. Okay, so more tourists can also mean that they're destroying.
Yeah,
what
but we can't
stop
it. We can't stop it. So we can complain about it, but we can also what Eva said. Structural solutions, and that's what I mentioned was create spots in the city where it's crowded. And if you're walking on the central station from the Damrak to the Leidseplein, of course it's crowded. If you go into the red light area, it's crowded. If you go 3 blocks away, you don't see hardly tourists. Okay, so that's I think that's also a mindset of the people. From we can see it as an enemy, but you can also embrace it.
Yes. Okay. And but what do you then say to your neighbor about all these nice villages north of Amsterdam?
It sounds a little bit like Giethoorn, and a little bit closer to the city. Yeah, of course, if buses coming in on a way where you don't supposed to have buses, maybe should forbid it. But I'm really against the negative view people see to tourism. Also sometimes Amsterdam people on a bicycle really shout to tourism. That's a really bad situation.
Before, right? Yeah. So you say we're too negative actually about it.
Yeah. It's also we have one of the most authentic and well-deserved cities in the world. Everybody wants to see it, so we can't stop this tourism thing. We have to organize it.
Okay. Peter van Lonkhuizen, we just can't stop it. Let's face it. It's a worldwide trend. We also heard that in previous presentations.
I fully agree. And I also agree that we are sometimes too negative about tourism. But there's just one thing. We have to start making policy. We have to start not being reactive, as Mr. Milano said. Just start. Maybe have an alderman for a start. Rotterdam has one. Amsterdam has so much more tourists and doesn't have one. So
but then we have an alderman that's also that's okay. We can call somebody an alderman. What should this person do?
This person should restrict in many places tourism, I think, and should make sure that destructive things cannot happen too easily. Some things are really hard to stop, I know, but that's when you look at it for the entire city. But when you look at it for Amsterdam-North and especially for Waterland, there's a lot of things that you can do to make sure that it's the tourists that you want.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about the other side. Let's not talk about the negative side, but the positive side, the benefits. Tourism can bring benefits, and the question is, who gets these benefits. So how do we make sure that these benefits are equally distributed, also in the areas where these tourists go? How do you view that?
Well, for first, I think the reason I got into contact with in Holland was because I read about Airbnb. I thought that was a brilliant concept because in my neighborhood where I live, it's a very poor neighborhood, factory houses built for the factory workers. Now it's being sold a lot, so it's a lot of Airbnb, but also we know each other very well. I managed to get all these people enthusiastic about Airbnb. And so this is what I think, this cooperative approach, and that a part of the benefit goes to the retail, to the shops, so permaplane, this, I think that's really fun. And good examples in like Amsterdam-North, people are getting this conscious approach in tourism I really like.
And if you look at a big tourist attraction like the Edam Tower, what kind of effect does it have on the neighborhood? How can that benefit the neighborhood?
Well, it's actually, since a few months, I'm now a board member of the Adam Music School. And to tell you the truth, I said yes to being the chairman of the Adam Music School because I've never been up. And I needed a reason. And of course, I didn't know a lot about it.
And you didn't want to buy a ticket.
I didn't want to buy a ticket.
Board member.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I like the guys, I know them pretty, but I'd never been there. It doesn't really attract me personally. But now being part of this music school and hearing the story and knowing that they want to lower the threshold more for the neighborhoods. You should explain this
music school.
The Adam Music School is set up by one of the founders of the Adam Tower.
All of us.
All of us. Sorry, Sander and all the music makers from the music industry. They really want to get young, talented, motivated people, give them a platform. There's all these facilities in the building. The kids can use it, but they are not attracting enough from the north. It's only 6% in the last year. So now Duncan has this policy. I want to get this, like this Yuppie Tower. I want to Yuppie-tize it or whatever.
Is that a word?
And,
yeah. I like the word.
So he got a great new team together, and we're doing all these activities. Like Koen said, where are the activities? But anyway, in the neighborhoods to get them to the, and then you get this vibe, from this school.
Sander, goed, is that also an objective for you as an entrepreneur to benefit also the neighborhood that you're working in? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for example, the Adam Music School is our charity.
Yeah.
We benefit. Yeah, we support music lessons for people with less. With a background, they can't support it by their parents. But also a lot of people working in the tower are from the north, and was one of the main goals also. Yeah, not just being this high tower in the north, but also attracts the neighborhood. Yeah, it works.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm looking at the audience. We have 3 more minutes, more or less. Are there questions that? Otherwise, I'll ask. How do you listen to this, Claudia?
That of course we need to manage. And we need to. If I should pick some of the sentences and the impression, we need to manage and we need policies. Tourism is a sector as other sector, as pharmaceutical sector, as a bank sector, and we need rules. We need to rule a sector that with technological revolution is come out from the border of a sector that is not just related with tourism, is related with the urban and city life.
Yeah, but now we're in a neighborhood level. How can they're all in Amsterdam-North? How can they contribute to this new policy making?
I have been once in Amsterdam-North, so general speaking, of course, like co-created with community. I mean, the perception of communities is really important to understand, not just if tourism wants authenticity, but how tourism can help to improve facilities in a neighborhood like Amsterdam-North that was not used to have this kind of flux. The only time I was there a couple of months ago, what I saw some new infrastructure called for a creative class, because there were some big plays saying, if you are an artist, please come in, let us know if you want a space. So, for example, this is a phenomenon that we already seen in several other cities, from Chicago in the 80s. So we need also to check it out, which could be the impact in terms of rentals, house pricing. So prepare a neighborhood that is open up to the global flows.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Can I add to that? Because I think that's maybe something nice to inform the rest of the audience, that the Urban Leisure and Tourism Lab, which is in Amsterdam-North, together with TOP, is trying to create these co-creation sessions together with locals, where exactly what you were saying, that in the coming year, together we're going to design this future vision on tourism in North, together with locals, entrepreneurs, and all stakeholders involved, and together with the students from in Holland as well. So I think maybe next year we'll have the...
Yeah, we have a plan of action.
Okay, so after this, maybe a very good question to finish off is this. We're talking about these neighborhood levels, and actually from the presentation of Rotterdam, what was interesting is that they sort of said, okay, let's look how can tourism contribute to solving problems that we have and that we see. Now, Amsterdam-North is also one of the poorest areas of Amsterdam, has a lot of problems. How can tourism contribute to that?
Well, if you ask Koen, the student, he also at the Noorderpark metro station, at Metro Noord, at the shopping mall Buikslotermeerplein. These are two places that really could need some attention and attract, some activity or something. There's hardly any people stepping out. There's no signing, etc. So I can really imagine that that attracting tourism with special activities there could also have a positive effect on the development of the shopping mall, etc. Because it's my favorite shopping mall because it's so bad and I really love it.
Yeah.
And
okay, so but then maybe also Peter van Lonkhuizen, if the challenge is how do we preserve this beautiful waterland, how can tourism contribute to preserving this beautiful
what struck me in the Rotterdam example is that, okay, when you say we don't want a hotel in that area, but we want one over there, then the sum total always is more hotels. Well, that is okay for Rotterdam, I guess, but for Amsterdam, it is now becoming more and more of a problem. So, should you have a policy like that, or should you try to influence this in another way, and especially, at least not in the Amsterdam
okay,
area.
You mentioned that before, but then again, could there be a way that tourism can actually contribute to preserving these beautiful waterland villages that you're talking about?
Yes, there could be. They are very pretty, but so we have to first to think, how can we prevent them being destroyed? The second is, how can we tell their stories better? Because they have beautiful stories. So we have to try to improve our storytelling without attracting buses. So these two things we have to do at the same time.
Okay, I saw you shaking your head.
Yeah, I think the hotel stop is not a good thing for Amsterdam. And I think, if you have certain areas with new hotels, you can attract people also out of the city. For example, if you see Miami, it's all about hotels. Everybody hopping from hotel to hotel. For example, a big hotel at the arena area, with also maybe a cool sky bar, attracts people from the city to that area and will benefit the retail and the whole area.
Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you for that. So we hear that we're sort of trying to co-create a new policy. It's difficult. We cannot finish it today. There will be a follow-up meeting on this in the fall of this year, where we actually will start this co-creating process. This was only a small start introduction into that. Can I thank you for your contribution today? Eva de Klerk, Sander Goed, and Peter van Lonkhuizen. With that, we come to the end of the program, but not before I want to thank the program maker who invited all these guests and made it possible that we had so many interesting talks from abroad until the neighborhood level. Daan Dekker, where are you? Up there? Yeah. And this is only one of the almost 500 sessions, so there's still a lot for you to choose. You can go to the WeMakeThe.City website and see what more you want to visit. Thank you a lot.